Today is an extra special day because it is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Yes. And I wanted to pick a mug today that represented his message. And it's let freedom ring, okay? Do you see it? You know? Let me take my sip in the name of Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's for sure, but it's definitely a time, where we should all stop and take it in and think about, his investment in us. And most importantly, the example and how he lived, Yes. Because I think, we all live off of his prayers, his dreams, and it's, his trying. And to think of his I have a dream speech, like when I think of it, it's like the dreams that I get to dream up and the things that I get to do and the things we get to see our children do and even us sitting here together. It was his dream. And oftentimes I sit back and wonder when I see things, as my mother used to say, just sitting back watching the world. And I look back and I wonder, and I say, I wonder what would he think of us as a people today and how far we've come, Or will he look back at himself and say, servant, well done, Because, again, this was his dream and goal. But not only for us to live our dreams, but for us to be able to come together as human beings and be on one accord. Yeah. So I can only say, I hope, we're doing okay. And yes, we have ways to go, but, because of him, we're able to dream and continue on with the things in life that we aspire to be due to his legacy. Yeah. And I got to visit his birth home. I guess it was maybe a year or so ago when I did the movie Respect, and I got to play Miss Rita Franklin. And it's like, how when you're young, you see something, but you don't understand it? So as a child, I got to go to that same house, and, visit it and everything, but I didn't understand. I didn't have that understanding and then when I went back for Respect. And here I am dressed as a young Aretha Franklin, who was a part of the movement. And it showed me how we can use our platforms to make a difference and how we must come together to make a difference. Is it true that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired you to write?
Well, when I was between my junior and senior year in high school, I took part in a program, a workshop program. I was in a journalism workshop. And the gentleman who started this program, Dr. Clark, he he was good friends with Dr. King, and he invited him to address the participants in the program. So Dr. King came to address us, and I was in the journalism workshop, and they picked me to go with all of the reporters that were traveling with Dr. King. He had just gotten Man of the Year the year before, and he would get the Nobel Peace Prize later in 1964. So the press was with him all the time. So they let me I was the tallest journalist out there with him. And I got to, interact with him and ask him a question, and he told me that the program was going to succeed because we were already thinking about how to make our community, Harlem, a better place. And meeting someone like that stays with you.
Of course.
You don't forget that, especially what happened afterwards. Within 4 years, he had been assassinated. And, part of my activism has so much to do with the example that he set. Mm-hmm. And, we are very lucky to have had someone like him to show us the way to go.
Yes. I'm blessed to have you share this with us today. Ooh, tell us about Rustin, your other film project.
Rustin, so it's Bayard Rustin, Netflix, George C. Wolfe, the amazing guys, Coleman Domingo. If you didn't know his name before,
He is so awesome.
know it now. That man is a powerhouse. We're both from Philadelphia. It's been such a beautiful joy to watch him ascend and grow. It is his moment, and he deserves it all. So it's basically built around a real person who actually, due to his sexual preference of who he chooses to date and be in bed with, people kept this history and news covered. And so this man was influential, arguably the orchestrator of what we know as the March on Washington, and was basically MLK's right-hand man. But again, because he was gay, they decided to bury this history. And so you just have all these beautiful pioneers. You know, we know the MLK story, but we don't know this story.
Right.
And we don't know it from this perspective. And so many amazing actors that we love and revere are involved in this project. This is Michelle and Barack's project, so that's amazing too. And I play Mahalia Jackson. Wow, I've never seen that picture before.
Oh my, it's so good. It feels like Mahalia. What was it like to sing as her?
Well, you know, there's one thing to be a vocalist, there's another thing to portray a real person, and from a musical standpoint, get into, I call it their musical posture, right? Like your voice does certain things. I don't know if you experience it with Aretha, that like, yes, you can obviously sing all those notes and then some, but how she goes about making certain sounds. I noticed that like, she has a more covered, open sound, kind of more in the back of her throat to make these booming sounds, but she's not pushing. Where I would like, think that I had to just push, and belt it to the high heavens, but it was very controlled for her. It was an amazing, amazing experience. Mahalia was an artist that always was wafting in our house. My grandmother loved her, and it was always on.
I am an odd to sit next to you, because you have had such an incredible life. You even was at MLK's I Have a Dream speech, right?
I was at the March on Washington.
The march.
Those men. Here I am.
Wow, what was that like?
And that's Sammy Davis Jr. sitting next to me.
Sammy Davis
and I'm
Jr.
frowning only because it was blazing hot and the sun was shining in our eyes. But I have a story to tell you about that. He was sitting with, who's a wonderful gospel singer who was a good friend of his?
Mahalia Jackson.
Mahalia Jackson. And he gets up to do his speech. And by the way, I'm no more than 10, 12 feet away from him, them. And he starts to speak, and then I see something that obviously not many people have. She tugs him by his jacket, and she says, Martin, tell him about the dream. Tell him about the dream, Martin. Because he was, I think, going to do another speech.
So that was like improv.
Yes.
Spared a moment.
So it's like he put the speech aside, and he literally, oh, I get such goosebumps. And he literally says, I had a dream.
And you witnessed that.
I was there.
You were really there.
I was there.
If you like this video, smash that like button and subscribe to the Jennifer Hudson Show YouTube channel. Check your local listings or visit jenniferhudsonshow.com to see when you can watch full episodes in your area. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter.